Hello, everybody. Without Steph Curry, the Warriors are leaning on Chris Paul to create offense. Here's a play Chris Paul used to run when Mike D'Antoni was his coach. You'll see this particular play called 21 Nash or 21 double or 21 stagger. And Chris Paul waiting on the wing. The other guard dribbles up, enters the ball to Chris Paul. Then the feeder is going to immediately follow with a screen. Behind him, there's going to be a big setting, a second screen. This guy will pop out, and this will become a pick and roll with Chris Paul and the big. Big rolls, they contain a little too hard with Ingles here sinking in and giving way too much space for Austin Rivers, who hits the open three. Here's the Warriors running 21 stagger. In the previous Spurs game, Podziemski had entered the ball to Chris Paul. Now he's immediately following with the screen, and Trayce Jackson-Davis is setting the second screen. This play is looking promising. Chris Paul's defender is behind him, so that means Chris Paul can attack here. Trayce Jackson-Davis is going to roll. Zach Collins has to defend two of them. Trayce rolling hard. Zach Collins has to stay with him. Paul should have an open lane to the basket, except what is this guy doing here? Jeremy Sochan just sitting in the lane, and that stops Chris Paul from attacking all the way to the basket. So he pulls up and takes a highly contested jump shot, which sneaks through. Let's go back and see, how did Sochan end up just sitting in the lane here? Sochan is guarding Jonathan Kuminga, and Kuminga makes an ill-advised cut towards the basket, which brings Sochan. He tries to get out of the lane, but Sochan does not have to follow him. He says, "You're not the boss of me." Warriors try again. Podziemski enters into Chris Paul. He's going to follow with one screen. Trayce Jackson-Davis with the second screen. Again, Chris Paul's defender is trailing him. Trayce is rolling hard. This defender is going to whack Trayce as he goes by, but he ultimately has to stay with Podziemski. So again, we have CP3 and Trayce attacking this one defender. So Collins again staying close to Trayce on his roll. Chris Paul should have a free run to the basket, but Sochan again is just sitting in the lane here. So Chris Paul pulls up and misses. So let's go back and see how Sochan ended up in the lane. So he starts off guarding JK. Last time JK cut all the way to the lane, and that brought Sochan into the paint so that he could then help. This time, JK tries to do an interchange with Saric, but that also brings Sochan down to the bottom of the paint. This spacing is bad. JK and Saric can be guarded by Keldon Johnson here. One guy, Sochan, already had to drift down near the basket, and now he can just sit around and be a wall against Chris Paul. The Warriors got to play the Spurs 2 nights later, and so they had a chance to make some adjustments. Podziemski entry to Chris Paul, follows up with a screen. Trayce Jackson-Davis sets a second screen. So the last couple times, a defender ended up in the paint. So this time, Kuminga isn't even on the court. We have Moody here, who this defender will not want to leave. And Draymond in the corner here. Draymond is shooting a stunning 42.3% from three-point range this year, so this defender can't completely ignore Draymond. So finally, we've got the paint clear. CP3's defender this time is getting hung up on Podziemski's screen. He's now coming a little late. Zach Collins tries to split the difference between Trayce Jackson-Davis and Chris Paul. Trayce Jackson-Davis is already behind Zach Collins at the free throw line, so he's got a straight shot to the rim here. Chris Paul sees all, tosses up the sweet lob, sweet catch, sweet finish. And just to prove they can run it with JK on the court, we have the usual setup, entry to Chris Paul, Podziemski follows with the screen, Trayce with the second screen. All the previous clips, we've had Chris Paul's man fighting through the screen or going under. This time, this guy switches to Podziemski and counts on the second defender to come out and guard CP3. This defender is late to switch, so Chris Paul and Trayce Jackson-Davis are attacking Zach Collins again. This time, Kuminga is not cutting through the lane, or he's not drifting downwards. He's not doing anything to get his defender to drift towards the basket. In fact, he's wandering up to the wing, and this is enough to keep his defender drifting away from the paint. The other defender can't completely leave GP2 in the corner, so now there's not going to be any help in the paint. Zach Collins, instead of containing Chris Paul at the free throw line, he's hanging very close to Trayce Jackson-Davis. He's even got an arm out to grab Trayce as he goes by. And that means Chris Paul is going to coast in for a wide open layup here, which he muffs. But because Collins stepped over to try to intimidate Chris Paul, Trayce Jackson-Davis has an offensive rebound. Trayce is going to kick it out to JK. JK attacks the closeout and picks up the foul. I can't help talking about one more play. This play starts off not promising. No one can agree on what the play is. Steve Kerr, looking at it all unfold, puts his hands out. I'm pretty sure that's not a play call. I think that's exasperation. He's saying, what are y'all doing? Bruce Frazier, Q over here, is also waving people into position. Steve Kerr starts pointing that the play should go to this side of the court. Podziemski is pointing that the ball should swing to the other side. More pointing to go to this side. JK does throw the ball to Trayce at the top, but Chris Paul says, forget it, man, and he points to the other side of the court, saying, no, swing the ball back. Steve Kerr pointing this way. It's all a mess. So Trayce tries to do the safe thing and do a dribble handoff towards Chris Paul. Victor Wembanyama tries to deny the handoff. He goes for the Hail Mary steal. Trayce dribbles around him. This play is all screwed up anyway. There's 12 on the shot clock. You only live once. What can you really say about this except nice move? Wemby gets him with the body. Trayce knows he's not going to make it to the basket, so he just throws the ball in from way up here, and it goes in. Let's wrap up with a quick celebration audit. Is Trayce about to damage American-French diplomatic relations? Gary Payton II, he's going to be the first to congratulate Trayce Jackson-Davis, and he gets extra credit because as he runs out to celebrate, Victor Wembanyama almost takes him out, but he fights through it like a champion, gives Trayce a little shove to the kidneys. Good job. Draymond is next, yells in Trayce's face. Jerome Robinson is in full I'm blown away mode. Lester Quinones is completely prone on the ground. Let's see how he ended up over there. Lester Quinones, he flows the synchronized air dunking directly into a interpretive dance of the collapse of Western civilization, and then flows that straight into a tapping of the head to signify that Wembanyama's head has been baptized by the basketball. Lester going full method acting for this. Wow. More head pats. Lester gets back up, goes straight into the I am deceased celebration. Good collab here with Jerome Robinson and Moody giving a helping hand. Well, all these antics are good and fun, but it's good to see Steve Kerr keeping it professional, keeping it, well, all right, you can't begrudge the man one. That was nasty, stank face. Nice try, Steve. You almost kept a straight face.